Hi, this is Jody Mayeux. Welcome to another video. This one's going to be on theory. Some pretty chords going on there. Chords are put together by pieces of the major scale. First thing I want to talk to you about is the 7 notes in the diatonic major scale, as it's called. I've been playing in the key of G. I'm going to keep this lesson in G. So the first thing I'm going to show you today is the major scale. G on the 3rd fret, 6th string, 5th fret on the 6th string, A. B on the 2nd fret, 5th string, 5th string, C note, 3rd fret, D note on the 5th fret, 4th string, E note, F sharp on the 4th fret, 4th string. I want to stop there for a minute because I want to tell you the next half of the scale is going to repeat itself again, just in a higher octave, as it's called. So the next note in the scale is at the 4th string, 5th fret. It's another G, just like we started with, the octave of what we had to begin with. Then we're going to drop down to the 3rd string on the A note, 2nd fret. Then another B note on the 4th fret, and C note on the 5th fret, dropping down to the 2nd string to a D note on the 3rd fret, E on the 2nd string, 5th fret, F sharp on the 2nd fret, 1st string, and the last note is G on the 3rd fret, just like we started with. It's 2 octaves higher than what we started with. In this scale pattern, we hit G 3 times. You hear all 3 of them there. Now, behind each one of these notes is a chord. We call it the chord scale. Some chords in our scale are majors and some of them are minors. And then we have one diminished. It's always the 7th note of the chord scale. So I'm going to go through, and I'm assuming that you already play guitar before you watch this video, because the series of chords I'm going to go through is chords you have to know to play guitar or put songs together. And you wonder how some people put these chords in their song when they're creating. Well, they have to come from somewhere. And all these chords to create music with comes from the major scale, period. In my other videos, we talked about the minor pentatonics. Later on, we'll explain to you how the minor pentatonic is an altered version of the major scale. All scales consist or come from the major scale, period. The first scale that we know of, period. Alright, so the first chord I want to talk to you about against our G major scale is the G root. That's our G, our root, or what we call in the Nashville Number System, the 1, the first note of the scale. Now, how you play this when you're creating your music is totally up to you. In other words, like I said earlier, I'm assuming that you already know how to play guitar. So if you're using the G chord here, or the G chord here, or the G chord here, or G here, or here, doesn't matter, as long as you understand that is our first note of our G major scale. Following suit of the next note in the major scale is the minor, the A minor, one of the relative minors of the 3 that we have going in the scale. So, A minor, whether you play in the open position, or if you play to the 5th fret using a bar chord, it's an A minor, from G to A minor. Or if we look at it in the Nashville Number System, we go from a 1 to a 2. 1, 2 minor. The 3rd note in our major scale, G, A, B, is a B note. The 2, 3, and the 6 in our series of notes, because when jazz players describe the major scale, and Nashville cats describe their major scale, not often do they refer to them as letters. A lot of times they'll refer to the chord as a number more than anything, because they're referring to a different degree of the major scale each time. Understanding that whenever they first started laying the song down or talking the music, they were talking about a certain key. In other words, today we started off by saying we're going to be in the key of G to begin with. So, having said that, if I start counting my increments up, the 3rd note of the major scale is a B. Having said that, using the 2, the 3, and the 6 are what we call the relative minor chords. The 1, 4, and 5 are our majors. The 7's the diminished. I'm going to cover a little more of that as we go on, but right now I had stopped and we're on the 3rd note of the scale, the B note, which in this case is a B minor. If you don't know that chord, you need to look it up. It's a good chord because we go up to the 3rd note. So now I'm going to go G, A minor, B minor, 1, 2, and 3 according to our Nashville number system. So now we're up to 4. 4th note of the major scale is a C. C chord, C chord, C chord. No matter how you play it, it's C. G, A minor, B minor, C. Now if you stop right there and you start listening to this, because even in college when they're teaching vocal lessons, they use this term called solfege to describe the major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do was what they used to describe the different notes or the whole steps and the half steps of the major scale. Whole steps means to skip a fret, half step means to go to the next fret in the scale. But if you're following suit of the major scale, you can hear me singing along with this, going do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, following the scale. Well, like I said, I stopped on the 4th, and if you strum the chords and go in order of that, you can hear that same thing coming alive through your chords. Do, re, mi, fa. So I'm up to the fa, which is the 4th note of the major scale. In this case, it's the C. The next note in the major scale is another whole step up. It's a D. D is the 5th note of the major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol. 6th note of the major scale is an E minor. It's like I told you in the beginning. We had 2, 3, and 6 were our minor chords that follow suit of our major scale. So the 6 minor is an E minor. Again, like I told you, I'm assuming you know how to play guitar. So whether you use this E minor, this E minor, this E minor, it doesn't matter as long as you know it's an E minor is the 6th note of the major scale of the key of G. So in our stance now, we got G, A minor, B minor, C, D, E minor. The last one I want to talk about is the funkiest sounding chord in the bunch. It's our diminished chord. Diminished chords to me, ear-wise, always sound like they want to resolve somewhere. You hear it going back to the 1. It wants to go home. Even when you're playing just the diatonic scale in itself and just playing the notes, you'll hear it wanting to resolve back to 1. It don't want to stay there. It wants to go right to the G. The same thing applies whenever you're either singing it or playing your chords. You hear it wanting to go back to 1 again. You hear it want to resolve. Like I said earlier, it doesn't matter the chord fingering that you use. I'm going to use all bar chords and cover the same scenario. So no matter how you play these, in fact I'll show you a little closer because I'm pulling a little closer to the camera now. G, A minor, B minor, C, D, E minor, F sharp diminished, and then finally G. And there you have it. You got the open forms that I showed you, and I also showed you in bar chord form. And don't forget, whenever you're practicing your major scale, if you don't know that yet, sit back and dwell on going backwards and forwards through the major scale. Just get your finger positions really good. Sit there, dwell on them until you get some speed under it. I'm not trying to show off. I'm trying to teach you how important this is to play this in music. So this is why you want to do it thousands of times to get it faster and faster. And it never hurts to understand whether it's a number or a chord that you're on. In other words, the 2nd note in the G major scale is an A. That's the 2, 2nd note of the scale. A lot of times jazz players are calling chords out on the end of the stage. You don't see their lips even moving, and they're telling the other guitar player what chord to go to. All he did was he did that really quick. You didn't see it. It was like a sleight of hands. Little magic talk behind the scene. He did that to the keyboard player. The keyboard went to a B minor chord because all he did was show 3 fingers. Didn't have to holler out the chord, hey man, we're going to the 3. He didn't have to do that. A lot of times they can do it so subtly that unless you're a musician, you don't know what's going on, but you hear some good music. It's been fun teaching you this lesson. I love teaching theory. It's my passion. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks. Have a good evening. How was that one?
Good.
The reason why I say that is because I get caught up in what I'm talking about.
Exactly, you're not thinking.
Look, well, I don't want to look like I'm dude, some of the worst acting you ever saw was that, right? Somebody trying to read a script, you know, and they're not a good reader at that.